Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we have a stack of source material that is, frankly, explosive.
That's a good word for it.
We are analyzing the unique, contradictory, and just utterly volatile professional and personal life of a bond enforcement officer, Stephanie Plum, who works out of Trenton, New Jersey.
And this isn't just a simple rundown of events. What we're really looking at here is what you could call a chaotic convergence.
A chaotic convergence. I like that. Explain what you mean by that.
Well, you have these two major criminal investigations happening at the same time, and they couldn't be more different in their methodology.
Right.
On one side, you've got this pure, low-tech, just gruesome violence. We're talking first-degree murder with a meat cleaver.
Brutal.
And on the other, a series of incredibly technical, sophisticated burglaries that are threatening to take down a major security operation run by this character, Ranger, who is... Well, he's a definition of organized.
And it all unfolds against this backdrop of, I don't know, exploding cars, disastrous home cooking attempts, and these really intense romantic rivalries. It's a perfect storm.
It really is.
So our mission here really is to unpack this specific brand of Trenton madness. We need to get into the tactics used by the bounty hunters, the motivations of these killers,
and most importantly, the identity of these thieves. How does someone undermine a hyper-secure operation like Rangeman?
Exactly. And at the center of it all is Stephanie Plum, a woman who is, by her own admission, defined by her fears. And yet she somehow navigates all this chaos and, astonishingly survives it.
She does. And the setting itself, Vincent Plum bail bonds, it tells you everything you need to know. It's run by her cousin Vinnie.
The rodent cousin, as she calls him.
The rodent cousin, and Stephanie's main motivation for taking this incredibly dangerous job.
It's not for justice or a sense of duty?
No. It's because it allows her to avoid the two things she fears most in the world: rabid bats and critically organized exercise.
That juxtaposition right there. It says it all, doesn't it? It sets the tone for this entire world we're about to step into.
Absolutely. Her whole Freidometer, as the files call it, is it's a perfect psychological profile.
Let's list them, because it's incredible. Spiders, serial rapists, cellulite.
Joe Morelli's Grandma Bella.
Which is a whole other story. And then rabid bats, organized exercise. It's this constant negotiation for her between real external threats and these very personal internal anxiety.
And she handles it all with this kind of reckless, almost accidental competence. It's not planned, but it works.
And the players around her are just as vivid.
Oh, absolutely. You have Stephanie, who is just perpetually struggling. Her car is always getting destroyed. She's always on the run.
And then there's Lula, her apprentice, a former prostitute, now a plus-size bounty hunter, who is defined by these huge appetites. For food, for action, for everything.
Lou was a force of nature. She started as a file clerk and just sort of willed herself into being a bounty hunter. Her personality is massive. And the files are very specific about her clothing choices.
Generously described as petite size. It's a visual gag that runs through the whole thing.
And then you have those sort of stabilizing forces in the office.
Stabilizing is a strong word for it.
Well, relatively speaking. You have Connie, the office manager. She's the classic va-va-voom Italian manager who somehow keeps Vinnie from completely imploding the business.
She's the anchor. And then, of course, the two men in Stephanie's life.
Right. First, there's Joe Morelli. He's a plainclothes cop, and his relationship with Stephanie is just aggressively off and on.
There's just constant arguments, but there's this incredibly deep history between them. It's messy.
Very messy. And then on the other side of the triangle, you have Ranger.
Ranger, the head of Rangeman security. He is the complete opposite of all this chaos. He's the epitome of high-end control.
And he has this very proprietary view of Stephanie. The source files are explicit. He designates her as his personal property.
That phrase, we absolutely have to circle back to that because it defines their entire dynamic. It's so intense.
It is, because Ranger represents order. Pure, calculated, efficient order.
And Stephanie, despite her best intentions, represents the force of uncontrollable chaos.
And in this deep dive, we're going to see order and chaos collide in the most spectacular ways imaginable.
Okay, so let's start with the daily grind. The bail bonds business. Vinnie's world is really Stephanie's burden, and we need to understand the environment that allows all this to happen.
The engine driving the whole thing is financial pressure. Pure and simple. Vinnie Plum is in a constant state of panic.
And that's all because of his wife, Lucille, right?
Exactly. Lucille's spending habits are legendary. She seems to believe that the only thing keeping her life from total, existential collapse is a constant, incredibly expensive stream of home redecorating projects.
So Vinnie is always freaking out about the mortgage.
Always. Which means Stephanie and Lula are always being sent out to chase increasingly dangerous and, frankly, absurd FTAs, people who fail to appear in court.
So the job isn't driven by a sense of justice, it's just pure financial desperation.
Precisely. Which is why when the truly horrific violence erupts, it catches them so completely off guard. They're used to chasing petty criminals, not dealing with this.
And the violence arrives, of course, through Lula.
It always does. This brings us right to case file A. The Stanley Chipotle decapitation. Lula bursts into the office. The files say she slid her red Firebird to a stop right outside, and she's clearly in a state of profound shock.
And the way she describes the scene is just... it's horrifyingly vivid. She saw a man in a nice suit and a striped tie get decapitated.
By two men. And not with a knife or a gun. With a giant meat cleaver.
A meat cleaver. The sheer absurd brutality of the weapon itself is just staggering.
It is. But Lula's focus, her immediate takeaway, drifts to the physics of the aftermath.
Right. She recounts watching the head, and I'm quoting here, pop off its neck and bounce down the street.
It's grotesque. The trauma is immediate, but her coping mechanism kicks in instantly. She completely bypasses any rational response. She doesn't call the police. She doesn't run to a safe place.
No, I have to stop you there. A head, bouncing down the street. That's a level of dark absurdity that should break a person's brain. What is the very first thing Lula does after describing this?
She panics, but it's very specific kind of panic. Her panic manifests as this desperate, overwhelming need for immediate, high-calorie, high-grease comfort food.
Of course it does.
She demands donuts, a whole bag of them, and she talks about having a big grease craving, which can only be satisfied by a bacon, egg, and cheese sandwich.
So she needs that immediate sensory input of food to even begin to process the horror she just witnessed. It's a fascinating psychological response.
It is. And while the rest of the office is just aghast, Lula is already planning her trauma meal. And at first, they don't really believe her, do they?
No, it sounds too cinematic, too absurd, even for Trenton. It sounds like she's making it up.
Exactly. But the whole thing gains immediate credibility when the police recover the head and bring it downtown for identification.
And Lula is able to ID it.
She is. She confirms it belongs to Stanley Chipotle, and she notes she was used to seeing him in his puffy chef hat and the red apron he wore to advertise his barbecue sauce.
The irony there is just... it's brutal. The man known for his barbecue meets this grisly end with a cleaver.
And this is where the investigation hits its first major bureaucratic snag. And that snag is Lula herself.
Right. She's the star witness to a first-degree murder.
Yeah.
But she is notoriously allergic to any authority figures who aren't, Morelli or Ranger.
She claims she has an allergic reaction to police stations, and she describes the symptoms in great detail.
Let me guess.
Irritable bowel and hives and the heebie-jeebies.
The heebie-jeebies. An official medical condition, apparently?
Apparently. And she uses this as a complete barrier. She will not go downtown to give a formal testimony, despite how serious the crime is.
So enter Joe Morelli, the plainclothes cop who has to somehow get this crucial testimony. You can just picture him, can't you? He must look like he wants to shoot himself, having to navigate not just a murder, but the bizarre demands of his star witness.
He does. And he knows that conventional police work is just not going to cut it with Lula. He has to resort to other means.
How does he do it? How does he finally secure her cooperation?
With a bribe. A bribe that speaks volumes about Lula's unwavering priority.
Ready for this.
Morelli had to promise and then deliver an incredibly specific, high-value, multi-course gastronomic reward.
Okay.
2 cheeseburgers, a massive order of onion rings, a full bucket of chicken, and the crucial final element, an ice cream cake from Carvel.
An entire ice cream cake.
An entire ice cream cake. Only after receiving this bounty did she finally agree to come downtown.
That is just incredible. The police budget for witness inducement on this case alone must have been astronomical.
It really highlights a recurring theme, though, doesn't it? In Stephanie's world, the most critical information, the key to solving a case, it's often secured not through advanced detective work, but through chaotic, often greasy negotiation.
Absolutely. The serious, dark elements of a decapitation are immediately undercut by the absurd demands of the witnesses. This is the chaos side of our convergence, operating at full tilt from the very beginning.
So now, having established that violent chaos of the bond office, we need to pivot to the complete opposite, the sterile, hyper-controlled world world of Ranger and Rangeman security.
Right. This is where Stephanie gets pulled out of her world and into the world of order to solve a problem that order itself can't seem to contain.
Ranger's problem is, well, it's existential for his company. Rangeman is supposed to be the best, high-end, top-of-the-line security. But they're suffering from these repeated, ongoing break-ins.
And the central issue is that the thieves somehow have the access codes, right? The continuously changing numerical codes that are supposed to be impossible to get.
Exactly. And the only logical conclusion is that there's an internal mole, an insider.
So Ranger's paranoid.
Completely. His distrust spreads through his entire inner circle. He even starts to suspect Tank, his second-in-command, a guy who basically lives and breathes the Rangeman ethos. It's a huge crisis of faith for him.
And Ranger's personal environment, his apartment, it reflects this obsession with control, doesn't it?
It's the ultimate expression of it. It's expensive, it's efficient, but it's totally unlived in. Top-of-the-line stainless steel appliances, granite countertops, but zero personal touches.
No photos, no clutter, no books lying around.
Nothing. No favorite possessions that might suggest any kind of vulnerability or history. He uses the space, but he doesn't inhabit it.
And this is the world that Stephanie, the queen of clutter and destruction, gets thrown into.
It is. So let's look at the modus operandi, the MO of these thieves. Because it's so specific, it clearly indicates a motive beyond just simple profit.
The precision is what stands out. It's almost surgical.
Astonishingly so. They only hit residential accounts that are protected by Rangeman. But even then, their focus is incredibly narrow. Only the master bedroom and the home office.
And they always steal the same kinds of things. Cash, laptops, specific types of jewelry.
And very notably, Patek Philippe watches. They have a very specific shopping list.
But the truly defining characteristic, the thing that makes this so weird, is what they leave behind.
Yes, they consistently ignore other items of equal or even greater value that would be super easy to fence.
Like the Cartier watch, right? The diamond and rose gold one that was just left on a kitchen counter.
Or valuable icons that were displayed in the living room. They didn't touch them. They were only there for specific items on their list.
And the execution, flawless.
Flawless. The alarm was always disabled for exactly 15 minutes, no more, no less. And then it was reset. That implies they had a pre-planned route. They were timed to the second.
And they always came in and out through the garage.
Always. Avoiding more obvious detection points like the front door or main windows. So it's a very clean, very controlled operation.
Which is why Ranger needs an unconventional spy. He needs someone on the inside who the men wouldn't suspect, which of course leads him straight to Stephanie.
He installs her in a cubicle on the 5th floor, tasking her with conducting computer searches. But the reasoning he gives her for why she's the perfect spy is just a masterclass in proprietary arrogance.
This is the personal property thing.
This is it.
Yeah.
He dictates that the men will just assume she's his personal property and therefore won't suspect her of being an actual spy.
His logic is that they might stop talking freely around her because she's his woman, but they wouldn't see her as a professional threat to the security operation itself.
And Stephanie, even though her internal monologue is screaming, she accepts this premise because she understands Ranger's world. She notes the severe logical flaw in it. A human being isn't property, like a car or a shirt.
But she gets it. In that hyper-masculine, high-stakes environment of Rangeman, she realizes this designation. It paradoxically gives her cover and a weird kind of protection.
She says, and this is a great line, "In my building, we share cars and shirts. We don't share women." It's a statement about the unwritten rules of engagement in Ranger's domain.
The downside for her, though, is the sheer tedium of the work. For a bounty hunter who thrives on adrenaline, sitting and staring at a computer screen is pure agony.
She develops an immediate ass cramp after just 1 hour.
Of course she does. And she uses it as leverage, right, to demand a new, more comfortable chair from Ranger. Even in the middle of a high-stakes spy mission, her personal comfort remains a top priority.
Absolutely. But this is where the chaos agent provides the solution to the order problem. The big breakthrough in the case doesn't come from her tedious data analysis at the cubicle.
No, it happens at night, when she's been displaced from her own apartment because Lula is there, and she's trying to sleep in Ranger's sterile, unfamiliar bed.
And she's trying to block out Lula's sonic-level snoring from the other room. It's the physical discomfort and the chaotic displacement that actually forces the intellectual breakthrough.
She realizes something so simple.
So simple. Beating a constantly changing code doesn't require sophisticated hacking. It just requires sight.
The hypothesis is just elegant. She figures the code was obtained visually by planting a minuscule camera near the touchpad.
A pretext would be used, a technician shows up claiming to check the phone lines or the cable. They stick a tiny camera somewhere, film the homeowner punching in the code, and then come back later under another pretext to retrieve the device.
And if you look back at the MO, this explains everything.
Everything. It explains the consistent 15-minute window for the theft. It's just enough time to get in, get the targeted items, and get out once you have the code.
It explains the specific targeting of people and items. They would know exactly who was home and where the valuables were located from their initial surveillance.
And Stephanie finds the confirmation she needs, the physical proof. She goes to a commercial account that had been burgled, an insurance company building.
And at the rear entrance, above a motion sensor, she notices something tiny but vital.
Flaked tape.
Just a little bit of flaked paint.
But it strongly suggests that something had been temporarily stuck there, like with tape, and then yanked off, pulling the paint away with it.
A tiny camera.
Almost certainly. And this realization immediately narrows the suspect pool from the entire Rangeman staff down to a very specific subgroup. People who had the technical access and the nerve to schedule fake service calls on Ranger's most valued clients.
It shifts the threat from some generalized unknown mole to a specific internal saboteur with a very particular skill set.
And it all came from chaos. Stephanie's messy life, her displacement, it provided the clarity needed to solve this very high-tech, very orderly crime.
Okay, so let's dive back into the real job, chasing the FTAs. Because if the Rangeman case is all about precision and tech, this is about pure seat-of-your-pants improvisation.
And Stephanie is constantly bouncing between these two realities, which often leads to violent and completely absurd results.
We have to start with the Stark Street paintball ambush. This is just an utterly bizarre infiltration attempt, and it's led by Ranger.
They're hunting a drug runner named Kenny Hatcher and his boss, a guy called Marbles, and their headquarters is, appropriately enough, on Stark Street.
Which Stephanie accurately describes as a street that runs straight to hell.
A perfect description. And Ranger's method for getting inside this fortified building defies all standard security protocol. There's no covert entry, no hacking.
What does he do?
He pays $20 for a simple run-through ticket to the paintball game they're running as a front. He just walks in the front door.
He knows Marbles is inside. And Marbles has this history, right? He used to operate an all-night dog grooming and cockfighting business.
Yes, and the files include a detail where Ranger carefully clarifies that the cockfighting did not involve poultry. It was purely focused on dogs. It's one of those little details that just grounds the absurdity of it all.
But the real absurdity is the room designation for the paintball game.
Right. Stephanie enters a room that's literally labeled motherfucker.
While Ranger, of course, takes the one labeled pussy.
And the result for Stephanie is immediate and very, very painful.
She gets lit up.
Absolutely. She's hit multiple times with paintballs that are described as being as painful as getting hit with a rock. She's immediately incapacitated, covered in these painful welts.
And Ranger
emerges completely untouched, not a single drop of paint on him.
And his reaction is just peak Ranger. No comfort, no, are you okay?
None. He just states matter-of-factly that she is clearly pussy.
Thus validating the room signage.
And simultaneously confirming her suspicion that he thoroughly enjoyed the fact that he escaped unscathed while she got pummeled.
He then concludes the apprehension by just kicking in Marbles' office door. He doesn't bother picking the lock or trying to be quiet.
No, it's a purely theatrical, aggressive act of dominance to capture the guy. And Marbles' eyes are described as rolling around in their sockets, popped out like marbles. So, mission accomplished.
That whole scene is just a perfect microcosm of their partnership, isn't it? Stephanie suffers, Ranger dominates, and the job gets done through sheer force of will, not necessarily skill or finesse.
It is. But the list of absurd FTAs just keeps on delivering.
Oh, yeah. Next up, Junior Turley, the public flasher.
And his apprehension has to take place at a viewing at the local funeral home, which is, naturally, Grandma Mazur's primary social networking hub.
The funeral home is basically the place to see and be seen in their corner of Trenton.
It appears so.
Yeah.
And Grandma Mazur's reaction to the flasher is just priceless. She's actually accused of encouraging Turley's behavior.
And her defense is what?
She defends herself by claiming she doesn't mind seeing his winky up close because it helps her confirm his identification. And then she adds the highly specific and unsolicited detail that all them Turleys is hung like horses.
You just can't make this stuff up.
You can't. And Lula, trying to be the professional, ultimately tases Turley while he's in the act of flashing.
The shock, The public embarrassment.
Yeah.
That should be the end of it.
It should be. But he's arrested, and then the chaos just escalates into a stampede. Turley somehow wrestles free even after being tased, and the sources describe him as sporting a huge erection and a bad case of rug burn.
Oh my God.
And he shoves both Lula and Stephanie down the funeral home steps with all these tuxedoed funeral attendees scrambling out of the way, and he just escapes into the night.
Proving once again that sometimes capturing a determined old man is way harder than capturing a seasoned drug runner.
Exactly. And then there's Ernie Dell, the firebug.
Dell's physical description is key to his character, I think. He's shaped like a butternut squash.
With a narrow, gourd-like head and a disproportionately large backside. And he claims to have been a movie producer, a stockbroker, a race car driver, and an alien. So, a very stable individual.
Clearly unhinged. When Stephanie and Lula finally track him to his crumbling charcoal gray mansion, he makes his escape.
He does, via an improvised rope ladder that he just drops out of an upstairs window. It's low-tech, but it's effective. He gets away.
But the real consequence of Dell's escape is what he does next. And it's profound for Stephanie's already tenuous life.
He torches her car, her most reliable vehicle, the trusty 10-year-old Ford Escort. It's rendered a melted, black, smoking wreck.
It's a moment of total devastation for her, financially and personally, and it's summarized perfectly by the notes from Ranger's control room.
Right. The GPS unit that Rangeman has attached to her car, which they use to track her movements, it just registers the car as a non-functioning unit. The destruction is so complete that even their high-tech tracking system just gives up on it.
And finally, we can't forget Myron Kaplan.
Myron Kaplan, the 78-year-old retired pharmacist who robbed his dentist at gunpoint.
And his motive?
His teeth didn't fit right, and the receptionist, whom he called Miss Snippety, refused to give him an appointment.
A crime born purely out of ill-fitting dentures and poor customer service.
Precisely. And his confrontation with Stephanie Lula is just the definition of polite yet effective evasion. He distracts them by asking for a few minutes so he won't pee his pants, citing his advanced age.
And out of respect, they give him a moment of privacy.
And he promptly escapes through a bathroom window. It seems respect for the elderly is a serious liability in the bounty hunting business.
So, okay, we've established the external chaos of all these skip chases. Now let's talk about the internal chaos, the domestic chaos, which is driven entirely by Lula's new high-stakes hobby.
Competitive barbecue.
Competitive barbecue. This whole Lula BBQ saga is the domestic subplot of pure financial desperation.
It is. Lula is trying to win a $50,000 cook-off prize. And not for herself. She's doing it to pay off Vinnie's mortgage.
Which would solve all of his Lucille-driven financial problems in one fell swoop. The stakes are incredibly high.
They are. And the way Lula secures her spot in this prestigious cook-off is, well, it's a method only Lula could deploy.
It's not based on culinary merit, I take it.
Not initially, no. She blackmails the contest runner. He was a former customer from her hoe days, as she puts it. She uses old photos.
Of course. And she refers to them euphemistically, I assume.
As reminders of happy times. It's pure leverage, rooted in her past life. Her desperation is palpable, but her early culinary attempts are legendary disasters.
The source files give us some pretty painful, visceral descriptions of her initial practice ribs, don't they?
They do. They are variously described as being burned black, tasting like monkey shit, and being dry as an old maid's fart bones.
Dry as an old maid's fart bones. That is remarkably specific.
It is. So clearly she's failing spectacularly at basic meat preparation, and yet her confidence remains completely undiminished.
And this amateur hour reaches its absolute peak in Stephanie's kitchen.
It does. Lula is experimenting with her barbecue sauce recipe, and she's using a pressure cooker.
I can see where this is going.
The pressure cooker explodes. It sends barbecue sauce absolutely everywhere. It splatters across the walls, the ceiling. It's a total, sticky, sugary disaster zone in Stephanie's apartment.
And the cleanup of this mess introduces a fascinating new character.
Yes, Lula's date, Larry.
Larry is a fireman, which is incredibly practical, given Lula's general proximity to disaster at all times.
It is. He's also known as Mr. Clucky, and he's a former pro wrestler who used to wrestle under the name Lady Death.
And he habitually wears dresses.
He does, but he firmly and repeatedly insists that he is not gay.
So Larry, the cross-dressing fireman ex-wrestler, helps Lula clean up the kitchen explosion.
And in a moment of genuine culinary revelation, he shares his secret ingredient for great barbecue.
Which is?
Blackberry jelly.
Blackberry jelly.
This one, seemingly simple addition, turns Lula's disastrous monkey shit-tasting ribs into something genuinely competitive, something that might actually win.
It's a beautiful moment of chaotic convergence right there in the kitchen, isn't it? The high-stakes financial motivation, the sheer absurdity of the characters involved,
Lady Death the fireman.
and the accidental discovery of a winning formula. But this domestic chaos, as absurd as it is, really sets the stage for the true escalation of violence.
Because as Lula gets closer to the cook-off, and as the police investigation into Stanley Chipotle's murder deepens, the killers start to escalate their attacks.
And Lula, as the key eyewitness, becomes their prime target. It forces her into this constant state of displacement and fear.
The attacks become personal and very violent very quickly. We see the killers, who are now identified as Marco the Maniac and his partner Zito Dudley, attempt an ambush at Lula's apartment.
And they're wearing gorilla masks.
They are. They're really leaning into the theatrical, low-tech horror of their whole methodology.
And they use their signature weapon.
The giant meat cleaver. It's used in the ambush, but Lula, driven by pure adrenaline, ducks just in time.
And the cleaver gets stuck in the wall.
Violently stuck in the wall. And this is the moment where Grandma Mazur intervenes, proving once again that she is the most reliably armed person in all of Trenton.
She defends Lula.
She pulls her massive, intimidating .45 long-barrel handgun out of her patent leather purse and fires off a couple of shots at the fleeing guerrillas.
So Lula's chaos is protected by Grandma Mazur's geriatric firepower. It's incredible.
The violence then shifts from people to property, specifically vehicles. After Lula's Firebird takes some bullet damage in the attack, Ranger does something rare.
An act of professional care.
He loans Lula his own personal car, a Porsche Cayenne. This gesture of order, this expensive high-performance machine, it instantly falls prey to chaos.
The killers retaliate swiftly.
They plant a bomb in the Cayenne, and it's destroyed, along with Lula's already damaged Firebird, in a massive explosion.
And the bomb is explicitly described as ticking. Again, it underscores their low-tech, almost movie villain methodology. They're not subtle.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Ranger's reaction to the destruction of his very expensive car is so cold, so efficient, and so deeply telling of his priorities.
What does he say?
He just observes the wreckage and notes with this barely contained exasperation, "I've had that car for 24 hours.
It's not about the money.
Yeah.
It's the inconvenience, the inefficiency, the disruption to his perfect, orderly world.
Exactly. Meanwhile, the police investigation has been progressing, thanks largely to Lula identifying Marco the Maniac from a police photo lineup. He has bushy hair and a broken nose.
But Morelli needs a final confirmation, right? He needs Lula to officially identify the victim's body.
He does. And so he takes her down to the funeral home where Stanley Chipotle's headless body has been kept on ice in a freezer drawer. This isn't a formal viewing. It's a cold clinical identification of a refrigerated corpse.
And Lula is confronted with this horrific reality, the frozen, headless body.
And the source files detail the immediate and dramatic consequence. Lula faints dead away. She just crashes onto the white tile floor.
And when she wakes up,
She denies the whole episode ever happened. She just claims, people aren't supposed to be going around without their head. It's not right. It proves that even Lula has a limit to the absurdity she can handle.
so the plot then accelerates rapidly to the climax, which is the $50,000 barbecue cook-off.
Marco the Maniac, now desperate to eliminate his only witness, targets Lula at the event. Total chaos ensues. And during the struggle, fellow bounty hunter and Stephanie's perennial rival, Joyce Barnhart, is shot.
And then we get to the moment that defines this entire chaotic narrative. Zito Dudley, the partner, gets a hold of Lula.
He takes her hostage at gunpoint. He's threatening her life. And Lula, facing imminent death, resorts to the only weapon she has left.
A weapon fueled by a week of intense barbecue experimentation and Larry's secret blackberry jelly ingredient.
She releases what the files describe as a massive, minute-long fart,
A minute-long fart.
leveraging the profound digestive distress caused by leftover barbecue gas. This is not subtle. This is a sustained, potent chemical weapon.
And it works.
It causes Dudley to stagger back, gagging. He drops his gun in complete shock and disgust.
I have to pause here. We are talking about a deadly first-degree murder case that is resolved by a literal cloud of toxic flatulence. What does Morelli do? How does he react to witnessing this?
Morelli immediately apprehends Dudley while he's still reeling from the gas attack, And Lula, ever the pragmatist, skips any moment of relief or humility.
And she immediately asks Morelli if she gets the reward money for the capture.
Immediately. The crisis is over, and the financial incentive is right back on the table.
It's the ultimate victory of chaos over organized violence. The killers are apprehended. Marco was later caught trying to flee to Venezuela. But the primary capture was secured not by police training or Rangers' tactics, but by Lula's unique gastrointestinal reaction to competitive cooking.
So, with the low-tech brutality solved by high-power flatulence, let's return to the world of order and see how Ranger resolves his high-tech security failure.
Right, using the crucial insight that was provided by Stephanie's chaotic displacement.
The final apprehension strategy rests entirely on Stephanie's simple camera hypothesis, the idea that the thieves planted visual devices to get the codes. Ranger uses this theory to go back over surveillance footage.
And he finds a timeline discrepancy, right, related to his specific vehicle. A pest control van, which lets them finally identify a suspect.
Yes. The surveillance leads them to the suspect, a guy named Toby, who fits the youthful description they got from a maintenance man. But the ultimate breakthrough, the thing that cinches it, happens in a moment of pure observational normalcy. It's not a high-tech raid.
Stephanie spots him at a Starbucks.
Just sitting alone at a Starbucks, completely absorbed in playing a handheld electronic game.
And this isn't just any game. It's one of the specific, highly prized electronic devices that was consistently stolen from the residential accounts.
That small, seemingly insignificant detail confirms their unique MO. The thieves aren't doing this for things they can easily fence. They're doing this for the items themselves, for the thrill of the game.
So Ranger mobilizes immediately. He brings in 3 black Rangeman SUVs, Tank, Ramon, Hal, the whole crew.
They track the suspect to this bland 1970s-style office building, and as they're closing in, Stephanie realizes the name of the thief's company written on the door.
Got game security.
The irony is just, it's delicious. They are literally advertising their criminal philosophy.
Ranger and his men execute the capture swiftly and silently. Ranger throws the suspect, Toby, against the wall. It's over in seconds.
And when they enter the adjoining office suite, the scene is just this bizarre treasure trove. The office is crammed floor to ceiling with all the stolen items.
Cash, jewelry, electronics, all the Patek Philippe watches, all the things they were too specific about and couldn't figure out how to sell on the black market.
And the revelation of the thieves' motivation is genuinely the most surprising element of this entire deep dive.
They weren't seasoned criminals. They weren't mobsters.
No. They were 2 goofy kids, Toby and his younger red-haired partner. And their motive was simple. They had both applied for jobs at Rangeman and were rejected for being too young.
So this was revenge.
It was revenge, but it was also ambition. They decided to prove Ranger wrong by financing their own startup security company, Got Game Security, by systematically robbing his high-end accounts.
They treated the entire crime spree as a sophisticated intellectual game designed specifically to defeat the master of control himself.
That's why the MO was so specific. It wasn't about maximum profit. It was about fulfilling the rules of their own self-imposed game. They were competing directly against Ranger, not the victims.
And Ranger's reaction to this, according to the files, is this rare moment of profound vulnerability for him.
He is utterly embarrassed.
Embarrassed, not angry.
Embarrassed. He was nearly ruined. His entire company's reputation was on the line, not because of a professional criminal syndicate, but because of 2 disgruntled job applicants, 2 goofy kids who just turned his own security systems into their personal high-stakes video game.
It forces him to confront the limits of his own organization, of his own control.
Exactly. The orderly world of high-tech security was defeated by youthful ingenuity and resentment. It proves that sometimes the most dangerous threat comes from the people you underestimate and reject.
So here we are. We've reached the end of our chaotic convergence.
Yeah.
And the dual resolutions couldn't be more starkly different.
Not at all. The incredibly violent, low-tech murderers, Marco the Maniac and Zito Dudley, are in custody, thanks entirely to Lula's unique chemical warfare capabilities.
And on the other hand, the sophisticated high-tech Rangeman break-ins are solved. And the culprits are 2 disgruntled, hyper-intelligent job applicants who treated felony theft as a competitive intellectual exercise.
In both cases, conventional policing and high-security procedures really played second fiddle to chaotic improvisation, didn't they?
They absolutely did. So let's review Stephanie's current state. How did she fare in the middle of all this convergence?
Well, her apartment is firebombed and completely unlivable. It's a melted wreck.
And she notes, with that typical dark humor of hers, that the fire damage didn't even reach the bathroom she desperately wanted to remodel, so the disaster wasn't even, a productive one.
Her primary means of transportation has been obliterated. The escort is a heap of molten metal.
And Lula also managed to get Ranger's loner Cayenne blown up.
So she is constantly displaced. She's living almost entirely in Ranger's apartment in this state of indefinite, if very luxurious, emergency.
And her living arrangement with Ranger is, of course, highly negotiated.
Very. When they discuss the terms of her stay, Ranger is explicit. His terms are sex and closet space.
That just defines the possessive nature of their relationship perfectly, doesn't it? She gets access to his pristine clothes storage, but it comes with a very high price.
Yeah.
Underscoring his proprietary view of her.
It does. And then there's the inevitable love triangle with Morelli, the plainclothes cop who still brings her food. That remains completely unresolved.
They're still arguing constantly, still navigating that volatile, off-and-on status of their relationship.
And the final scene we have from our files is just classic ambiguity. Stephanie and Morelli have been arguing over their status while he fed her chips and beer, and as she leaves his house,
she gives him the perfect non-answer, ensuring that this conflict will continue indefinitely.
She tells him that there are some things a man should just find out for himself, leaving him to figure out on his own whether the night is off or on.
It's the perfect encapsulation of her life, really. Uncertainty, high tension, and a complete refusal to give a straight answer, guaranteeing the pursuit continues.
So if we connect all this back to the bigger picture, we're left with that final provocative thought. It's about the very nature of competence in this chaotic world.
Ranger, with all his immense resources, his disciplined employees, his rigorous systems, he was ultimately defeated by two teenagers playing a game that his own training couldn't possibly predict.
Meanwhile, the most brutal, immediate threat, the cleaver-wielding maniacs, they were only stopped when the messy, unpredictable survival skills of chaos agents like Lula and Grandma Mazur came into play.
Firing a .45 long barrel out of a handbag, unleashing a massive minute-long fart. These are methods that defy all logic, but they proved incredibly effective against pure, unrestrained violence.
So we have to ask you, where do you put your trust? Is true security found in the organized, well-financed systems of the world? Or is it sometimes found in the messy, improvisational, unpredictable reality that proves that only total chaos can defeat deadly chaos?
That's something to consider the next time you hear a mysterious sound in the night. And maybe, keep a can of blackberry jelly handy, just in case.